I can remember when I was older and going to the park and riding the Wildcat repeatedly. We'd get off, run around to the entrance, go back up the steps, get on, and ride it over and over again. And it was a lot of fun. As a teenager, I can remember going to the dances in the ballroom and having a lot of fun, meeting my friends there and dancing to not a DJ with a band, and maybe sometimes a DJ from one of the radio stations. It was just a lot of fun.
Well, my brother decided he wanted to build a roller coaster, the Wildcat, and in '96, and he got this crazy idea to start doing it, and this is what it became of. And we finished it in 2003. Four. He was supposed to come home from New Orleans to finish it. He had 1 foot of track left to build to complete the track, and he passed away. So my wife and I took it at the Campville Fair and to finish it. Yeah.
But one side note about this model is why we're together today. When it was at the fair in 2000, I saw it in a newspaper, and I told my daughter I was going to show her where Mommy grew up and her favorite ride at Idora Park, and I walked up to it, and there he was.
And I was in the process of still building it with my brother, and
we've been together ever since. So Idora has brought people together even years after it was gone.
It needed a new home. Like I said, it's been in our garage for 13 years, and we bought the house. Had the house for 1 year, and
we needed our garage back.
I just wanted my garage back, and it needed a good home.
People needed to see it again.
And now people need to see this, you know, and it's there.
It's too much not to have people see it, and people used to say, well, maybe you should put it on eBay, maybe you get all this money for it. Not about the money. The people of Youngstown, it had to stay in Youngstown. That was our main goal. It's for this valley. It's for us and for them. And here it is. And we're very happy. We really are. We couldn't be happier.
My great-grandmother came from Conneaut Lake Park to start the Candy Floss in Idora Park in 1929, which her building was down by the office, and a beer truck knocked it over. And the year that they closed the swimming pool is the year that they built concession stands under the Rockets, and we were able to get a concession stand. This is her original recipe I use, and everyone loves it. I think this place is awesome. I think I give a lot of credit to Jim and Tony Amy for taking this and taking their time and going all over the country looking for artifacts from Idora Park. I use an original machine from Idora Park that my father had.
Well, when we were kids, you know, we always went to Idora Park. My aunt and uncle lived across the street, and he drove the train, and we just went all the time and had a ball. It was great. And what do you think?
And I went from school trips all the time, and then with him later on.
And you know what? Hot Day at Idora Park, too, I remember quite a bit. And I used to play in bands, and all the bands in town were at Hot Day every year, and, you know, with Boots. And Boots' son and daughter are inside, and you can talk to them.
I'm Christopher Bell. This is my sister Leslie Bell Redmond. We are the children. We are the children of Boots Bell. Boots was a radio personality who worked on television as well in our valley for many, many years.
WHOT, the Boots Bell Show, looking round at 40 degrees of temperature. Hey, the number 10 tune on WHOT. For the year 72 was America's Horse with No Name.
He also did a lot of shows at Idora Park, almost weekly, and he would be doing what was called a record hop. Most people don't know that term anymore today because those don't happen all that much. However, we have met people here who met at Idora Park because my dad introduced them to each other. But a place like we have here today at the Idora Park Experience is wonderful because we can all remember going to that concert at Hot Day. A band called Left End, a local band, played 13 hot days in a row. And I think that's got to be a record.
when we would go to the park with our dad, a lot of times with him having to work, it turned out that he would need to have somebody kind of watch over us. So I know a couple of times he would volunteer a couple of girls to take us around. He'd, give them a fistful of money and say, take my kids and give them a good time. And so they'd take us on rides while he was working. So that was how he got around. He wasn't actually like going through the park with us. A lot of times, to be honest about it, he would draw a crowd and we weren't able to do things, because of his popularity, like a mob scene kind of thing. So, but going there with him, sometimes we would see like a bird's eye view of things, maybe from behind the stage sometimes. But most of the time we were just out in the audience too.
We're glad that we were able to come here and participate in such a wonderful event, because this is what it's all about. And to have people give support to it, we really appreciate it.
The hot days were awesome at WHOT days. I remember when Dick Thompson, Boots Bell, Johnny Kay, and Dick Biondi went up and sat on a flagpole at the on top of the ballroom. Those were the fun days, and Idora Park was just packed with people.
The rides, the food, everything. I started when I was in this early 70s, late 60s when I was small.
I started to get interested in roller coasters and was a member of the American Coaster Enthusiasts. And when I would go to other parks and be wearing an ACE name tag that said Youngstown, Ohio, I had all these people would come to me and say, "Oh, Youngstown, how's the Wildcat running this season?" And I was puzzled. I said, how do they know about Idora Park? Well, it turns out a lot of people knew about Idora Park because of the Wildcat roller coaster.
I was a little girl. I could just remember going there with my family, and I'm like, coming here, I don't actually remember. So coming here and seeing everything, it's pretty cool to know that Youngstown had an amusement park, and bringing my boys here so they can see it. Like Youngstown, we did have an amusement park, so it's pretty cool.
We took the park for sale from a holding company in Washington, D.C. They came up because my husband was a CCIM and we sold unique properties. So we had the listing. Well, we tried selling it. I think it was $395,000 when we first started, and we tried to talk to everyone in the community to purchase it, but nobody came forth. So my husband said, let's have an open house at the ballroom, because most of the park was burned down at the time. So the kids got some of their speech team friends and they cleaned up the ballroom, and we set up chairs and we invited the entire community as well as the officials of the community, all the councilmen and the mayor and everybody, and we'd hoped that maybe that would help sell it. Well, what happened was I said, you can go with the park, you could go with the Historic Society, different people like that in the city, and save this, because it was 27 acres in the city along with that ballroom. That ballroom was 30,000 square feet of maple flooring, and the only thing that was really, really wrong with it was on the outer parts where we used to sit outside in the summer. They could open those doors and you could look outside to the park. Some of that was leaking, but that could have been fixed. So I invited all my musician friends and the community and everybody, and we had a pretty good turnout. People donated, McDonald's donated some orange drink, and the gentleman Bill, that's known with his popcorn with his little striped vest and everything, brought that, and Sue Hosa, who was the artist, I believe it was her that brought the paintings out there. It was wonderful, but then nobody did anything.
In 1993, I had retired from the Air Force and came back to the area, and I hadn't been to Idora Park since 1976. So I really wanted to walk through and see what was this devastation I'd been hearing about for the last 9 years, since '84 when it burned. And I walked through the area, and it really hit me in the heart. I was shocked that we'd lost so much, such an icon of the city, and I wanted to take something back that I could. Of course, my wife at the time says. She's still my wife, but anyway, she says, no, that's stealing, you can't do that. And I try to explain to her, look, I'm from Youngstown, it's okay, it's Idora Park stuff, we can take this stuff. She wouldn't have anything to do with that, so I couldn't take anything that was still there. There were a lot of artifacts still laying around from Idora Park. As we were walking up the Midway, the game that I used to work was the football throwing back in 1976. And there was a little light switch that was still there, and I said, look, I have to have that because that's my game. I have to take this light switch. So she let me do that. And to fast forward years and years later, it really hit me how much I really missed Idora Park, and there was really no tribute to it that was anywhere around. So I started looking for things, larger things from Idora Park. I was able to find some little things like popcorn boxes, a chair here and there, a couple of little things, and I started putting ads in newspapers, and the internet started getting bigger, so I started putting ads on the internet looking for things from Idora Park, and that's when the doors kind of opened up for me. I got a phone call from a fella who, it was a block caller ID, and it was almost like it was a drug deal, and he says to me, hey, I know a guy who's got some stuff from Idora Park, and I said, okay, what are you talking about? And it was something bigger. It was actually, there were parts of rides, Wildcat cars, a Jackrabbit car, things like that. And that's kind of how it got started. Once I broke through that barrier, I was able to talk to some of these fellows who are, I guess, maybe hoarders isn't a good word, collectors of Idora Park artifacts. And they started letting me see some of the things they had and worked out some deals. And I just felt a need to really bring these things together as much as I could. So we've traveled all over the place, all over the USA, really trying to find parts of Idora Park and things that are identical to Idora Park to bring them together so people could feel, you know, a little bit of the experience of having Idora Park again. It's not much, but it's a little bit better than what has existed before, which was really nothing other than memories. So this kind of helps people, you know, relive some of those memories again. And it really is fulfilling for myself. And luckily, my wife lets me, she puts up with it and she lets me do this.
I married the man that was crazy enough to be doing this, is how I got mixed up with it. I'm not originally from the area. I'm from California. I heard about Idora Park for years before I ever stepped foot in Youngstown, but it's hard not to become passionate about somebody and something that is just so heartwarming. You know, I'm overwhelmed every time we open our doors and we go through something like this. I never think that it's this impactful and that people are going to show up for it. And then we open the doors and we see the laughter and the joy and the tears and the memories and whole families coming in telling stories. And it nourishes my soul. It makes me feel good. It answers the question, why? You know, I'm probably less enthusiastic when he finds it and more when I see it come back to life. So every time he says, there's a new Idora thing, that's cool, honey, but when it makes its way in here and he starts to work on it and it goes on display and somebody walks up and says, oh my goodness, that was my favorite thing, then it clicks. And that's when I feel it hit my heart.
The most recent acquisition probably would be the Rapids/Lost River boat, which we located. It was one of the holy grails. And it was located in a yard in Austintown for about 31 years. And I went door to door trying to find where there was a rumor that it existed. And I went door to door with flyers. And it's funny because the second house, I made 100 flyers at least. And I walked door to door, and believe it or not, the second house I went to, those people said, it's in my backyard. So we found it that quickly. And they donated it. They donated it to us. I restored it. And the people actually showed up at our very next opening, which was in June of this year. And the couple were crying. We have photographs of them sitting in the new boat crying. And it was a great feeling for me. They said, you're the right guy to get this boat. We're glad you got it. Because I just want to keep this memory alive. I want to keep these things going. There's always a holy grail to Idora Park I'm looking for. At first it was a Wildcat car, then a Jackrabbit car, then a light that was above the office. The baby Wildcat cars, the Kooky Castle car, Turtle. it's a holy grail of something that I'm looking for from Idora Park, and it's an incredible feeling when I find it and I'm able to work out a deal, which usually it's the case. I can work out a deal to get these things. Sometimes I can't. Sometimes people won't part with some things, but it's always a big thrill. It's a feeling of accomplishment, like I've done something a little bit bigger than myself. I mean, it's just from an amusement park, and maybe in the the scheme of things of this planet, it's not such a massive thing, but when I look around and I see what happens and the people who come here, we had 1,400 people here our last opening, and people crying, people in their 80s, 90s, 70s, 60s, 50s, every possible decade of age you can think of, and they're appreciative about it. So it feels like I'm doing something for somebody, and that is really an incredible feeling for me.